Hello and welcome to another episode of The U. My name's Mark Burton and I'm an instructor here at Cisco. The Cisco Secure Firewall Management Center is perhaps the most popular method for managing Cisco's Secure Firewall Threat Defense Firewall. During the registration process in a non-NAT environment, the command to register the device is fairly straightforward. But there may be some occasions where you have to register the device where either the device or firewall is behind NAT, or alternatively the manager is behind NAT, and then the registration process becomes a little bit more complicated. Now it may be that you've seen the commands for registering the device, but maybe you've never seen a demonstration before. So the purpose of this episode is to demonstrate that procedure. Now, in this environment, which I'm going to demonstrate to you shortly, we have a Cisco Secure Firewall Threat Defense, which is related to this FTD device in this network topology map. The Cisco Secure Firewall Management Center is represented by the device with the FMC. I've got one of Cisco's router, the CSR 1000 router, nominated with the CSR, and there's some supporting devices, a Linux host called Bleda and another Linux host called Router. Now, I just wanted to be clear about this, that the NAT configuration on the CSR router, that's not really the focus of this demonstration. So although it's configured, I won't be going through that configuration with you. And also the version of the Cisco Secure Firewall in this demonstration is version 7.4.2, but it should be very similar for versions either slightly before or slightly after. So let's take a look at what we're going to demonstrate before I get on to do that. So we're going to start off with the standard registration process, registering the firewall with the management center where NAT is not enabled. So I'm going to demonstrate that to you, but also show you in my demo environment that NAT is not enabled. After a brief reconfiguration, which will be hidden from view, I'm going to show you how in step 2 that the environment is now NATed. So because the firewall is behind NAT, the firewall is still able to communicate with the manager, but the manager doesn't know the address of the firewall. And we'll see that registration process. And then step 3, after another brief reconfiguration, which I will do briefly and then show you proof that that has been done. And then in step 3, we're going to go through the registration process one last time, but this time where the management center is behind NAT. So the management center will be able to communicate with the firewall, but the firewall doesn't know the address of the management center because that's being NATed. Okay, so let's get going. So going back to this first scenario where NAT is not enabled, in this scenario, the management center and firewall know each other's IP addresses. Now you can see that in this topology map that the FMC has got an address of 192.0.2.20. It's connected to this network zone, and the firewall FTD has got an address of 192.168.10.10. So let's go and take a look at this. So this is my this is actually the router, and what I'm going to do here is to use TCP dump to monitor traffic, and then from the firewall, which is this one here, I'm going to see from the firewall if I can ping the manager, and that's the manager's address, 192.0.2.20. So you can see that that's worked. And if I go to this ping, it takes a little while to refresh. While I'm waiting for that to refresh, I'm going to go to the manager and let's see if the manager can do a ping of the firewall. There you go. It took a while, but you can see here that the address, NAT is not being applied. So you can see the addresses are quite correct there. So let me just stop that ping. There we go. And now on this other device, I'm going to listen on Bladder, which is on the same network as the firewall. So if I monitor communications and then this time from the manager, let's do a ping of the firewall. You can see the ping is working. And then if I go here, that's a bit more responsive, and you can see that that ping is working okay. So the addresses of the firewall and manager are not being NATed. If I take a look at the CSR router, I can see if there are any NAT translations. There aren't at the moment. So to onboard or to register the firewall, I'm going to use the configure manager command and then add the address of the manager, which is 192.0.2.20, and then I enter a registration key, which is something that you make up, and that is now in the process of running. And if I use this command show managers, you can see that that process is currently pending. It should say pending any moment now. Status is pending. So to complete the registration process, I log into the manager. Now you can see that here's the manager's address. You can see the version, it's 742. If I go to the device management menu, no device is registered. So I'm going to add that device. I'm going to give it a name, call it FTD. The address of the device, it's 192.168.10.10. And then enter that registration key, which I called key 123. Let me just double check on that. Yeah, I put in there, put in here the key 123, that's correct. Okay. You have to select an access policy. This is a virtual appliance, so I select the performance tier, select the required licenses. I'm going to select these three. Now notice one of the things you have the option of here is a NAT ID. That NAT ID is only required if NAT is enabled. Because it isn't, that's not a requirement. So now I can begin the registration process. Now this does take a minute or two to complete. Okay, you can see that that process is beginning. And then I can also go back to this show managers command. And that registration status, you can see it's changed from pending to in progress. And eventually that will be complete. Again, not too much I can do about this. The time it takes, it doesn't take a huge amount of time, but it does take a certain while to complete. Okay, so let's go back here again. Show managers. And it should say that it's complete shortly. Okay, one other thing you can notice here is you can see the address of the manager. Because there's no NAT, the firewall does know the manager's address, so that's showing in this show managers part. Okay, I guess I just have to be a little bit patient and wait for that to complete. Now it says that's completed. You can see the version, but we can see the manager's address. Okay, so that's nearly the first part complete. When it is complete, I'm going to delete, but I can't do that until this is done. So let's just wait a few moments for that to complete. So I can go to this monitor and check for the status. And really, we're just waiting for that to get to 100%, then we can move on to the next step. Now the deployment is successful. So we've completed that first step. So what I'm going to do here is to just go back to pre-registration. So you do that by deleting the device here. And when the device has been deleted from the manager, then we can also go back to the device, run that show managers, and that should have removed it from here as well. So the device has been removed from the manager, but that's also removed it from the appliance here. So now if you just allow me a few moments while I'm going to apply NAT to the router, and then I can begin the second stage. So let me just go and apply the necessary changes here. Okay, so that's we saw in scenario 1 the registration process where NAT is enabled. But what if we enable NAT so that the firewall is behind NAT? So in the demo environment, I've just made some changes where I've applied dynamic NAT, where the direction of that dynamic is from the zone where the firewall is based to the zone where the manager is based. So it's dynamic NAT. And what we've done is applied a pool of addresses that get NATed to. So an address from the firewall zone gets NATed to address in the manager zone. So for example, the private address of the host Bleda 192.168.10.90 may get dynamically mapped to 192.0.2.101 for an outgoing connection initiated from Bleda. And an outgoing connection from the firewall address 192.168.10.10 might get mapped to the address 192.0.2.102. So let's go and so one of the things here is that this time we will need to make use of the NAT ID during the registration process, and the firewall does still know the address of the manager, but the manager doesn't know the address of the firewall. Okay, so that's the issue one of the issues we have to deal with. So going back to this commands here, if I monitor traffic once again, and this time from the firewall, try and do a ping of the management center, that's still working. But if I go and take a look at the TCP dump, okay, that's going to show up fairly soon. But if I try and get the manager to ping the firewall, that's not going to work because that address has been translated by the router using dynamic NAT. So that doesn't work. But this is actually showing the address, although the address of the firewall is 192.168.10.10, it's been mapped to 192.0.2.101. Okay, so that's presented us with a few challenges. So how do we go about this registration process? Well, if we go to the firewall and we know there are no managers currently enabled. Okay, so if I recall that registration command, which is this one here, configure manager add 192.0.2.20, I want to register with the manager. I know the manager's address. I need a registration key, but in addition, I need this NAT key. So I've typed in NAT456, but it could be any key. It's just a registration key followed by NAT key. And because the firewall still knows the manager address, the manager's address there. So I enter that command. While that is that registration is taking place, I go to the manager. Now the manager doesn't know the address of the firewall. So when I go and add the device this time, I still put in the device's name, but I don't know its IP address. So I leave that empty. But the registration key, which I said was, I think I put it in as ABC123. Let's just check on that. Yeah, I called it ABC123 this time. I think I did a key 123. So ABC123, access policy, performance tier, licenses, but the key difference here is I need to add the NAT ID, which is NAT456. Okay, so that registration is taking place. Let's go back here and type in show managers. And that should look a little bit different. Okay, now it's still shown pending, but this time we've got an identifier, okay, which we didn't see before. Let's see what's happening here. So that's encouraging. Something good is happening there. Now, if you wanted to find out more about this on the Cisco website, okay, you can, if you do a search for the Firewall Management Center Administrative Guide, because I'm using version 7.4.2 in my demonstration, I've selected 7.4, though there are a number of different versions. You could look for the subtle differences. And then there's admin guide in the system settings section. There's a subsection called high availability, sorry, not high availability, system configuration. There's a section, I think it's in here. So I was looking at the wrong section. There's a section in here for NAT. Apologies, I'll have to come back to that. But there's a section on here for NAT that shows you how to do things. Anyway, let's ignore that. So going back to here, that registration is still taking place. It does take a little while. Let's go back here to see how things are doing. Show managers. You can see that that's completed. Okay, so that's good. Still know the manager's address. And here we can see that this is taking place. Let's go and take a look at deployment to device successful. So device management, maybe that just needs a refresh. Yeah, so that's registered, but notice here that there's no address for the firewall. We know the firewall, we know its version, we don't know its IP address. Now I've got a similar issue to before, where it's doing some deployments, and that's going to take a little while to complete. So just wait for that to complete. Okay, I believe that that's complete. Yeah, so we can see the device, but no IP address. So let me now delete that. It cannot be deleted. Okay, just wait a short while longer for that to really finish. And then we move on to the final step. Now it's finished. So I'm going to delete the device again. And if I go to the firewall, type in that show managers command. Okay, so that should remove. Yeah, so managers has gone there and managers has gone there. Okay, so once again, I need to just reconfigure my environment to apply NAT in the opposite direction. So allow me a few moments while I do that. Okay, so the final step then is, what if we apply NAT in the opposite direction? So this time we've configured CSR using dynamic NAT, but this time where the zone where the manager is located is the inside, and the zone where the firewall is based is the outside. So the direction of dynamic NAT is in this direction. Once again, I've defined a pool of addresses to translate to. Those are 192.168.10.101 to 102. So if we have an outgoing connection from the manager, which is an address, which has got an address of 192.0.2.20, its inside address is going to be translated to 192.168.10.101. We still need to use NAT here, but this time that the manager knows the address of the firewall, but the firewall doesn't know address of the manager. Because the firewall doesn't know the address of the manager, the firewall cannot initiate the connection. Okay, let's take a look at this. So going back to this demo environment, if I go and monitor communications in the firewall zone, and then from the manager trying to a ping of the firewall, that's working fine. But if I go and take a look at the you can see that the manager's address 192.0 to 192.0.2.20 has been translated to 192.168.10.101. Okay, if from the firewall I try and communicate with a manager, you can see that that's not working because the firewall doesn't know the address of the manager. I didn't show you this in the previous demo, but if I show that, you can see the IP NAT translations, but this is specific to the router, the CSR router, and really the focus of this demonstration wasn't to go into details about how to configure NAT on the routers, just really the registration process in NAT. Okay, so let's go through this registration process. So I'm going to do things in a different order here. So because the manager knows the address of the firewall, but the firewall doesn't know the address of the manager, I'm going to go into the manager this time, add the device, Okay, device name FTD. Now this time the firewall does know the address, the manager does know the address of the firewall. That address is 192.168.10.10. The registration key is required. I'm going to call this key 123. Sorry, make sure I type that in correctly. Key 123. Select the access policy, performance tier, licenses, and the NAT ID is required and register. So it's the manager which is going to initiate the connection, but on the firewall, I'm going to add this configure manager add command. Okay, but this time the firewall doesn't know the address of the manager. So what we do here is put in the command don't resolve, followed by the key, which I called key 123, followed by NAT. Okay, so I enter that command, type in show managers once again. Okay, so this time the firewall doesn't know the address of the manager, so that should be related here. Look, we've got this kind of a unique identifier. Let's go back to the manager, and you can see that this process is taking place. The manager knows the address of the firewall, and so on. But as I said, the firewall doesn't know the address of the manager, so that is currently pending. It's going to change to in progress, and then finally completed. So it's in progress, a few more moments and that should be completed. And as we've seen, once registration, there's some updates which take place and so on. So I'm not going to wait for the very end of this, but just to give you a feel for what's done. So once this says completed, I think that should be it, hopefully. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave it there, demonstration wise. Okay, so in summary, we've looked at the registration process of the Cisco Secure Firewall Threat Defense with the Cisco Secure Firewall Management Center. We saw the typical way of registering in a non-NATed environment, but we saw that if NAT is present, either where the firewall is behind NAT, or alternatively the manager is behind NAT, how you can modify the commands to do that. And I'll just go back once more and you can see that that's completed. So thank you for watching, and hope to see you on another episode.